Hey everybody, welcome to another action-packed, exciting episode of Scotty's Record Shop. Before we get into the matter at hand, which is ranking the John Lennon studio albums, I want to say welcome, hello to all of our new subscribers. I know I say it every video. I don't care. I really appreciate each and every one of you that views these videos. It really, really does mean a lot to me. Yeah. So, John Lennon. I don't think this is going to be an overly controversial ranking. There may be some things where some of you will go, but some of it, for the most part, you know it's probably going to be one of two or three things that are going to be up at the top. You know, it is what it is. But stick around for the ride anyway, okay? Why not? All right, so John Lennon is not my favorite Beatle. I've made it clear in other videos. Paul McCartney is my favorite Beatle. And initially when I was a kid, John was my second favorite Beatle, not because of the quality of his work, especially in the Beatles, but I mean his outside work is great too. But because I loved his rebel attitude. He was badass to me when I was a kid. You know, he went against everything societal. And then I'm not, this is a touchy subject, I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but in my personal world, I grew up and I kind of looked at some of the stuff, not the peace thing or anything, but other things, the way he was living his life. He was a very troubled individual. I don't think anybody can deny the fact that John Lennon was a very troubled man. He may have tried really hard. He probably did try really hard to overcome a lot of his inadequacies. But short version was he was a very violent. He could be very volatile. We can't really say that he was a very faithful man. Maybe towards the end a little more, but but it is what it is. His music is what we are here talking about, not necessarily whether he was a man of integrity or something. I mean, I guess it's irrelevant at this point in time. There was a video once, I wasn't even going to bring this up, but I don't plan these videos either. I click on start and it's like I just let it wing. Can you tell? It's the way I always operate. You know, I don't. If I knew a little more and I could study and look at it, how to make things zoom in and zoom out and all this other stuff. You know, show a picture up here, which didn't happen. You know, I don't do that stuff. You're in my living room, and you're literally in my living room right now, and we're having a conversation. I'm talking to you directly. You right there, right over wherever there. And that's just the way I always do things. I just like things personal. But there was a video. This guy was trying. The name of the video was John Lennon an asshole, and it looked at a lot of things and the guy tried giving him the benefit of the doubt in a lot of situations, but in the end, yeah, John Lennon was an asshole. And anybody who watched that were kind of like, you couldn't, I mean, again, it's separate from the records. Oops, you just saw what was at the bottom. Anyway, it wasn't about the music, it was about the man. But I just found that really interesting because I don't usually let people's lives mess with how I view their music. But with John Lennon, it kind of got in the way a little bit, and I can't explain it. I don't usually do it. I still love his music. A lot of it. Most of it. Anyway, let's get into it, shall we? You already saw, what was it, number, how many do we have here? Anyway, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8. No live albums that would pertain to this studio part. No compilations, although I really like Shaved Fish. And when it was out initially in the 70s, it was the only place we could get Instant Karma and Give Peace a Chance and Cold Turkey, Power to the People. We couldn't get those any other way. And that, so we all bought shaved fish, right? And also Happy Christmas, you know. But anyway, at the bottom of the list is one that I think most people put at the bottom, and that's Sometime in New York City. Now, this is not. This is a dated album because some of the subject matter on here. This is Lennon's most political album, and some of the stuff that he's talking about here may have even became outdated before the album even came out. But these were things that he was struggling with in 1972. A lot of people were struggling with. Now, a double album didn't need to be a double album. The second disc didn't really need to have, I mean, initially it's like, oh, Frank Zappa's on here. Yeah. Now, Yoko, we got to talk about Yoko sooner or later. Now, I'm going to be extremely diplomatic. And I've learned to become diplomatic about her over time. I do not care for Yoko Ono. Okay? However, Yoko Ono is not untalented. I think it's important. She was a classically trained pianist, I read somewhere. And, but she viewed music in a much different light than most other people do. It wasn't the structured. We'll get to an album here where I actually don't mind some of her stuff on it. Now, she's not a great singer, but she's not even really a good singer. She doesn't even sing half the time. But to say that she is completely untalented, probably, I can't play classical piano. I don't have that understanding of, I mean, I know a lot about music. I know music theory. I can play some instruments. I can even play piano a little bit, but I can't play classical. She could, she was just, I just don't get her. How's that? That's the most diplomatic thing. And she's all over this. And I think that although she really tries, I think that that this would have been better if she would have been a little less in front. You know what I mean? Some of these songs are really good. Of course, this has the song that we can't say the name of because YouTube will. I'll be referred to as a racist and all this other crap. But it's on here. It's on here. It's that "Woman is the of the World" song, which was inspired. The whole thing was inspired by a woman, by Yoko. So there it is. I'm not even going to go down that road. But anyway, the bottom for me, or my least favorite. I do listen to this once in a great while, at least the first album. The next one may surprise some people. Milk and Honey. Now, this has got some interesting stuff on it. It's unfinished, obviously, because this was stuff that was left after John had died. And I'm not questioning Yoko's motivation with this. Some people do. Some people like it was a cash grab. Most of this stuff was garbage, shouldn't have been put out. I mean, I know people that are like that. This is not obviously it's the second from the bottom, not my favorite. But I look at this compared to George Harrison's Brainwashed. George Harrison's, and we'll talk about that album down the road when I do a George Harrison ranking. But George was involved with that album. He knew it was going to be an album. He worked a lot on it. He unfortunately passed away before it materialized. However, he left instructions with Jeff Lynne and his son. This is where I want this to go. This song, I want this. That was pretty clear. They weren't. There wasn't a lot of. I don't know what Dad would have wanted here. Dad left. Was very detailed from what I understand from interviews I've seen of his son and of Jeff. It was just an issue of getting over the hurt of losing him and then going in and doing it. This was. John didn't know this came out. John didn't know this was going to come out. How would John feel about this? I don't know. There's a question that we'll never get asked. We all can play armchair quarterback and say, John would have loved it. And other people would have went, it's not done. John would have been pissed. And so that kind of, I don't want to say it taints it for me, but it really is an undone thing. There's some wonderful music on here. I wished, it's sad that he didn't live and we couldn't have seen where this could have gone, you know. So anyway, continuing on to this one, recently redone, remastered, remixed, and everything. I don't mind this album. I never minded this album. Yeah, it's muddy. His mid-70s stuff sounds a little muddy and everything, but there's a couple amazingly good tracks. I absolutely, out of his solo career, Mind Games is one of his best songs. There's a couple of really other good things on here too. Bring On the Lucy. I like that song. Some other things on here, but this was, you'll find out where the album that came out after this ends up, and it ends up a bit higher. Because I think that John just kind of was maturing, and he was he was finding his voice. This was a really hard time for him too. I mean, obviously the whole Yoko Ono and him breaking up situation was going on, which is the same thing with the Walls and Bridges album. I mean, they were not together at that point. But I don't know. This is just where this goes. I listened to the new remixes, and they are better. It didn't really impact my feelings on this album. It's probably, this is where it has been. This is where it's always been. Probably this is where it'll always be. So anyway, an album that people rank a lot lower, but I really dig this album. I don't know why. I just think John Lennon, I know it was just thrown together and everything, but I just dig. John sounds like, yeah, he was really messed up emotionally, mentally. There was a lot of substance abuse going on, but this is just a fun album for me. I just, it's a total opposite direction for him. His albums tend to be intense at times. He's a very, and we'll talk about this later. He just puts it out there. He's a very, you know who he is. You kind of really get a glimpse of who he is. This was just a fun album, and it's still a fun album for me. Obviously not his greatest album, but a fun album. So there you go. Rock and Roll from 1975. Next one. Remember I was saying that I don't mind some Yoko Ono stuff? This is a listenable album for me. Double Fantasy. I bought this, let me think, how did this work? The day after he died, because he died about 11:30 at night on a Monday night. And I found out when I got up in the morning to go to school, go to high school. And I'm not a morning person. I've never been a morning person. Those who really know me are laughing right now. I am not a morning person. Please don't approach me before I have coffee, and I don't function well in the morning. My mom, who knew I really loved the Beatles, was reading the paper, and it was obviously all over the paper that Tuesday morning. John Lennon had been assassinated, had been murdered. And she's like, Scott, I'm really sorry to say this, but John Lennon's dead. And, you'd think my first reaction was, oh, dear God, I can't go to school. I'm emotionally devastated. It was like, wow, that sucks, Mom. I got to get to school. In school, though, when I was sitting in study hall, that's when it hit me. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. John Lennon's dead? And, of course, it was the talk of the whole school, all of us kids, because, Double Fantasy had just come out. Starting Over was climbing up the charts, It was, I don't want to use the word devastating, because I don't want to sound like a drama queen, but it really messed me up, like everybody else, you know. Um, at some point in time, and maybe Joe Mayo will tell the story of how he actually went over to the Dakota that night, and it wasn't good. It was not. I felt when I heard that story and him telling that story, I was like, it I don't want to say it was again. I don't want to be a drama queen, but it was kind of traumatizing because it was like, wow, you know, because you could still see it that it just so deeply affected him. You know, it deeply affected all of us that were around and heard it. But anyway, I really like this album. You know, some people think it's wimpy. I think overall, other than like I'm Losing You, which is still a killer song, this is such an upbeat, happy album. And the bell at the beginning, Yoko was talking about how the bell at the beginning was supposed to like symbolize hope because it was a higher pitched bell than the bell on the Plastic Ono Band album, you know, with Mother. So anyway, I like this album. But oops, gotta get this right. I like this one more. This has really grown on me. Walls and Bridges. I don't know. I just really find that this is because obviously there's two more to come. Some of his best '70s work. Some of it was kind of negative, you know, or not negative, but kind of downer. But like Whatever Gets You Through the Night, you know, Number 9 Dream. There's other things on here that are, you know, understandable. He was going through a lot, and for somebody that was going through a lot, he made a damn good album here. So, 1974 for this? Yeah, 1974 this came out. So, Walls and Bridges is my number 3. Okay, now number 2 and number 1. You know what they are. How personal do I want to get? I don't want to get too personal, but my decision to place these the way they are because they're both amazing albums. The album that I'm going to put at number 2, I might as well just show it rather than talking about it, okay? Plastic Ono Band. The reason that this is honestly at number 2 is because this album is so damn intense. It when I was a kid going through a lot of traumatic experiences that I went through, this album was extremely comforting because I just wanted to yell with John, you know, with Mother, you know. I just wanted to scream with him because I felt that I identified with it. And back then that was good. Now I can still identify with it even though it's in my past, and it makes it harder to listen to. I don't know how to explain it. If you've been through a lot of trauma, this album is either going to really push you in one direction or another. You know, it's his most deeply personal, most intense album that he ever made. And you know, you walked away from this and you knew, I wonder what John Lennon thinks about religion. I wonder what John Lennon thinks about this. I wonder what, and it's right here. 1970, John Lennon was an extremely hurt, angry individual. Horrible, full of anger. And it comes out on this. And that's okay. Because so many of us can identify with that. So, you know, your mileage may vary on this one. I put it at number 2 because I just cannot put it at number 1. Because this album brings back too much for me in my personal life, I guess is the best way to put it. But I cannot deny, and I do listen to it from time to time, although I really honestly have to be careful when I listen to this thing because it can drag me down personally. But it has to be put up, either 1 or 2, because it's such a masterpiece. I mean, and a lot of people would put this at number 1. So, alrighty, number 1, you know what it is. I put this at number one, even though I think these albums, the last two, are equal in amazingness or whatever. This album has a little more hope in it, I guess, at times. Obviously, there's a lot of anger in here. How do you sleep at night? You know, stuff like that. That's a cool song, though. I mean, I'm sure that Paul didn't think so at the time. But I just think artistically, he was balancing his hopefulness and his love for Yoko with the trauma and the emotional scars that he had, plus his concern with society. It all was really more evenly balanced on this than anything else he'd ever done. Musicianship on this is fantastic. I really like this album. I think out of all of Lennon's releases, I think Imagine is at the top, and that's it. There's my rating of all of John Lennon's studio albums. Okay, let me know what you think in the comments. Okay, talk to me. I'm here, and for the most part, I really do try to respond to everybody. I think you guys all know that. You know, I'm not Mr. Biggs or something like that. I can actually still read all my comments. Maybe someday I'll be that big. It'd be kind of cool, but or even bigger. Help make me bigger. Let people know that Scotty's Record Shop is back in town and in business. And please please subscribe, and please share. It would really mean a great deal to the old man here. Okay? Okay. Until next time, everybody. Peace and love.